But I want to talk to you about the Play project, and I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to talk about this project, and also thank the NIH for support, NSF, and several foundations, and my colleagues on the Play project as well for their contributions to this presentation. So in the next several minutes, what I want to talk to you about is what is Play? And some of you may actually be expert in small PLAY. I want to talk to you about our particular project. Why?
Hey, Rick,
Why, what's the
could
motivations?
you turn your camera on
Sure.
for the Zoom? Sorry to interrupt.
All right, how's that?
Perfect.
Better? Okay.
Yep.
Some of the challenges that we have faced and met in doing this project, and some that are still in process. And give you a sneak peek about the data. So we're very close to having our first data release despite the pandemic and many setbacks. And then give you a charge. And you may see some similar themes. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt again. Your screen sharing is the data brewery on the Zoom. Can you adjust?
Just have to press resume share.
Like
Like the green play button.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
See that word?
I think you just have to
Stop share.
change the screen that you're sharing.
Okay. All right. Oh, that one. That's the problem.
Yeah, that was what
I
was
had
showing.
that up just to see if it would work. And I want to do this though. All right. This is.
Oh,
that
yep,
one.
that
There
one.
we go. Okay, I should have had a second window. All right, there we go. Like that. No, that's it's not there. Yes, this is it. There we go. Everything is good, correct?
Yes.
All right. And ultimately, what I was saying was that you're going to see some similar themes, and I swear that the presenters did not talk at all. Well, some of them, many babies people may have coordinated, but Mike, Frank, and I have obviously been communicating telepathically in other ways, many different kinds of ways. So what is Play? Play is an acronym for Play and Learning Across a Year. And it is a big team science project involving 72 investigators across 50 institutions right now in North America. And so I will play a short video that we use on our recruiting site to tell you a little bit about what Play is about. So to some extent, Play is about understanding an hour in the life of captured on video of children and their mothers, and the video is slow to play, probably because of the multitasking it's trying to do. But the aim is to capture natural behavior in the home of children as they go about their daily activities. And that includes everything from actually playing with toys. They might actually be, some of them might be helping mom with the dishes. Some of them might be helping in other kinds of ways. And the point is to capture behavior as it occurs in its natural context, and to record it on video, to annotate it with expert annotations from a variety of different psychological domains, and then share this data set with the research community. So our aim is to provide for the research community more than 1,000 data sets from mothers and their infants at 12, 18, and 24 months of age, plus or minus. That includes an hour-long session of natural behavior in the home. So when we say play, we really mean natural behavior, but of course, a catchy acronym is more attention-grabbing. There's also a 5-minute structured play episode. There's a video recorded tour of the home for people who are really interested in the micro details about the natural environments that children grow up in. There's a series of parent-reported questionnaires that are recorded not only electronically, but also on video for further analysis about the characteristics and the context in which parents answer questions. There's an ambient sound level recording. And all of these materials are subject to a rigorous quality assurance control procedure prior to the next stage, which would be utterance level transcription for both parties. And then following that, foundational video coding passes covering multiple psychological domains, as I mentioned: language and communication, locomotion and physical activity, object interaction, and emotional expression. And we're using the data view video coding tool to produce those annotations. And the goal here, which is different, I think, in many ways from many babies, is the data set itself. right? So that is to provide a common openly shared data set as the primary deliverable and to share it in an open way. But at the same time, to catalyze, to enable investigator-driven specific questions about any number of questions that the Play Launch Group might be interested in pursuing. We're also very interested in catalyzing and expanding the capacity of the research community to exploit video, the richness of video, to explore behavioral questions and questions in developmental science. And also, similar with many babies, to pioneer and polish tools for conducting big data open developmental science. So, well, why this project? Why now? The previous speakers set up much of the context for why this is important now. So you'll be hearing some similar themes. I'm going to talk to you a bit about conceptual, some analytical, and methodological themes. So first of all, I would like to suggest to you that natural behavior is rich, very interesting, and important for developmental scientists to study, especially people who study cognitive development. It can be readily and inexpensively captured with video. It can be analyzed systematically and reproducibility by human observers, more so really than computer vision related models. More about that possibly this afternoon. That environments outside the laboratory are most representative of children's experiences and important for us to consider. And fundamentally, as scientists, we need to tackle what Talia Arconi has called the generalizability crisis. His framing is, to some extent, more so about how we can generalize results, the statistical results. But fundamentally, I think there is a question: what does it mean when we find a phenomenon in a particular population, a particular task, a particular lab? How does it extend to other questions that we might care about? And fundamentally, what I would like to suggest to you is that at times, with our focus on specific behaviors and specific contexts, we can be like the blind men in the Hindu myth who may be grabbing the tail and think we're studying a rope. We might be have our hands on the trunk and think we're studying the snake. We might have our fingers on the tusk but think we're studying a spear. But in fact, what we all aim to understand is the whole beautiful elephant, the whole beautiful elephant. All right, so a problem that Mike alluded to is we know now that in many areas of behavioral science that our sample sizes are too small. This is, by the way, an excellent and sort of depressing paper from several years ago showing that across a set of fields, sample sizes are quite small in most fields, especially in neuroscience, and power to detect even middle-sized, medium-sized effect sizes is also relatively low across the literature. You can see the conclusion. The conclusion that these authors draw is that you may as well flip a coin given a particular published finding in the literature. A recent paper validates this essential finding in the neuroscience literature using openly shared neuroscience data set and suggests that the sample sizes needed to look at brain-wide associations are, well, let's just say, a lot larger than most folks have been collecting thus far and able to collect. And it is discouraging news to some extent, but it also can be empowering news if we say, well, now that we know, what do we do about it? Oh, I just realized I could do this for a moment. So, great. Wow, faces, right? Or inside my face is kind of covered. So we're also interested in that open developmental science in general presents many opportunities, poses challenges, but most challenges that can be surmounted. I'm optimistic about that. And ultimately will be more rigorous, robust, and impactful, as Mike mentioned in his talk. And some of these ideas, I'm proud to say, have been incorporated into a policy on scientific integrity, transparency, and openness that the SRCD adopted several years ago. And it's specifically important that doing this right is important work, that the work that we do to understand children's development is important, and maybe even more important now, right? That there has been a huge intervention, a natural experiment across the world affecting all of us, but especially children's development. So it's important to get that right. So Play has endeavored to conduct science in the open, much like many babies. So there was a planning workshop that was video recorded and held. You can watch that if you'd like. It's on Databrary. We also have an open project website. All videos about how to conduct our protocol are also shared on Databrary. We'll be talking this afternoon about some of the data management challenges that we have faced and still yet to face this afternoon. We published a paper about that. We also maintain an extensive GitHub repo. But I think the fundamental goal here is to think it's beyond sharing. So you can share a minimally curated spreadsheet of your data, put it on your website or have it as supplemental materials or on OSF. But is it really usable by another party who wants to reproduce your analyses, build upon them, and extend upon them? And that additional consideration is something that we think is important to advance in the field in order to create that cumulative science. An additional goal of Play is to grow Databrary. So some of you may be familiar with it, but some of you may not. Databrary is a restricted access data library. It's specialized for storing and sharing video and audio, but also related data. In restricting access to institutionally authorized researchers, the aim is to protect identifiable or sensitive data, but permitting open, but not necessarily public sharing. So open sharing with the research community, but not readily mined by individuals who have unknown agendas, and that's an important aim. And it requires explicit sharing permission, or at least that the investigators say that they have authorization to share with these materials with the right kinds of folks. We have also, Databrary is trying to advance this idea that video as data, documentation, and demonstration is worth considering for the developmental science community and the psychological community at large. And of course, Karen Adolph and I have spent a lot of time over the last decade putting this together. And so it was developed by, and especially for, but not exclusively for developmental scientists. Our growth has been surprisingly linear, that is in terms of the number of investigators and institutions across the world. So one of the challenges, and we can hope, perhaps, I'd love to talk, Kylie, with you and the folks, is how to take advantage of the network that we have to look at global sharing of these kinds of materials, because those problems are still yet to be solved thoroughly. Video and audio and other types of data are permitted. Obviously, this is from a recent report. By the way, you can query the Databrary API yourself as an authorized user and do these kinds of analyses yourself. We know that so most of the large number of files are video, but there are a large number of data view, image files, and others. And we know this is the tip of the iceberg, that it's only about 20% of the files are shared that are actually stored on the system. So lots of people are using the system for in-process projects, which is perfectly fine. And we very much hope that that will move to a more openly shared process at the end. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges that we have faced and met, and then those that we're still meeting in the Play project. So one of the biggest questions was, who do we include in this effort? What age ranges? What language backgrounds? We're committing to full transcription that creates some constraints. Where do we sample? What do we vary and what do we keep constant? An important question is an hour in the life, which again is our criticism, is it actually representative? What is it representative of? It's a sample, but what is it representative of? And what parent report survey questions should we collect, and how do we collect them in ways that reduce the requirements for standardization post hoc? And then clearly what kinds of behaviors to code from video. So we made some decisions. We're focusing on 12, 18, and 24-month-olds. That's an older group of infants than I have typically studied myself, but that is an incredible window of change in the lives of infants, right? So sometimes I like to say that they start that second year of postnatal life, some infants not walking or talking or doing much, and by the end they're walking, talking, lying, cheating, stealing, doing all the human things, right, that distinguish us from other animals in the animal kingdom. So an incredibly important window to study. And we are doing this cross-sectionally. We're only choosing English or Spanish-speaking households or bilingual households to be able to guarantee the transcription. We're focusing on children and mothers. As a dad who is still very involved in the care of my offspring, they've gone on to bigger and better things in our home. I think what dads do is very interesting. We are choosing not to do that for homogeneity among the sample, but a very easy extension of the play project will be to say, hey, we want to look at primary caregivers, whoever that might be. Could be grandma, could be dad, could be uncle, or dads. And you could just take our protocol and run with it. And there's already pilot data to show it works. And we're focusing on 31 sites that are chosen. Here they are across the United States. And these sites were chosen for reasons not necessarily to represent the diversity, to be nationally representative. However, in taking advantage of census demographics data, which are readily accessed by any of you using some really lovely R packages that make it super simple, that we are able to say that the races that are reported in the play counties are relatively diverse. They are not all homogeneous in any dimension. That ethnicity has some significant variability. That the languages spoken have some significant variability. That educational attainment also has some variation, and that household income also has variation. We have wealthier counties, and we have less wealthy counties. So at least they're available in the local areas that our recruiting sites are recruiting families who could participate, who represent some of the important dimensions of diversity, again, within the United States. I will say as an aside, we're in some early conversations with about a global initiative on play that would address some of the really important concerns we face about our science being weird in fundamental ways. So with respect to survey questions, we're asking questions about child health, maternal health and behavior, mother's mental health, the early childhood behavior questionnaire about infant temperament, if that's your jam, locomotor milestones, the MacArthur-Bates Communicative Development Inventory, and have collaborated on a new dual language learning inventory for families for English, Spanish, bilingual households. And have a paper that's under revision about that. But the instrument is already available. So if you are interested in dual language learners, please use it. And this has been a delightful collaboration, not only with the play investigators, but also with the MBCDI team at Stanford and WordBank. So we're excited about the prospects of that. We also have data about media use, pets, household structure, division of labor, typical day. And so we are asking questions about, was this a typical day? And how so wasn't it? So parents can say, yeah, this wasn't a great night. Oh yeah, this is exactly what I would expect in a typical day. We're using, excuse me, the Kobo Toolbox, which is a free open source tool that permits the development of survey applications and deployment on an Android tablet. And critically for us, allows that to be stored and then pushed to the website at a later date. We weren't sure that we could have connectivity to the internet in all the places we were collecting data. So being that caching and then being able to push later was important to us. And then fundamentally we had to ask, well, what behaviors to code? How do we see the videos with what you might think of as bookmarks? And so I mentioned the transcription. We also have foundational coding passes for communication and gesture, emotion, object interaction, and locomotion. And by the way, all of these link to our coding manual, so you can see what coders are coding, so what data will be available. And we will, I have a quick video to show you how this comes together, but maybe we'll come back to that. So a central challenge that we have been facing, and it's an ongoing one, is the challenges of IRB permissions. We chose to do a single IRB. We were, based upon the timing, we were not required. There is a lot to be said about the challenges of doing this sort of work. So I won't say a whole lot more about that, that it has been a much bigger investment of time, even though we had thought we had a single IRB, that there were incentives to do this in a more coordinated way. Oh my goodness, is that hard? And I think that will continue to be hard. That's even the case that we had a common sharing permission language, which was adapted from template language that Databricks had. That's something that we provide. And a common data use and contribution agreement through the Databricks Access Agreement. So notwithstanding the standardization around the outcome, the library, there have been many challenges. Some other challenges that we're still working on is how do we make the data findable and usable beyond the launch group? Right? This was designed with the input of about 70 folks. And so presumably represents some of their desires and preferences, but how do we make it more broadly useful? There are some significant limitations of the current Databricks, we call Databricks 1.0, as a platform for in-process use of data versus data that ultimately is curated and shared. And also how do we represent the provenance and give due credit to labs that have collected data, put it in their own, what we call a Databricks volume or project, but at the same time are reflected in this broader collection. We're still working through those, and some of them may actually involve a new version of the software. And then standard issues that many large projects come around. How do we version data, the protocol, and coding schemes in a way that is transparent to all of us? And many people are interested in follow-on studies or doing something in addition to the play sample. How do we coordinate that? How do we make that convenient and give the investigators proper resources? And that includes new data, longitudinal studies, and augmenting video annotations. Finally, a huge intervention in our project, as many of you can probably imagine, is the pandemic. And it has significantly slowed data collection. So we ended up taking a mid-project, no-cost extension, essentially extending a year of funding across 2, hoping that the pandemic would ease by the end of that and we could return to data collection. And that's happening to some extent, but I will have data to show you. We're accelerating progress. All right, so here's a quick sneak peek. Now, I want to mention to you that any of the videos that I show you have been permissioned by, so the parents have given, or caregivers, or the individuals have given specific permission for their data to be shared at a level that Databricks calls learning audiences here. So it is access to it and the ability to use the data is restricted to authorized users of Databricks, but these individuals have given permission for clips to be shown in public settings for informational or educational purposes. And these are the levels. Every file on Databricks has to be labeled in a consistent way. And the purpose is so that you as a researcher know what you can do and what you can't do with the information you have access to. All right, so happy to show these separately. We can look at the 1-hour natural play, the structured play episode, the pair report questionnaires if you're interested. We also have the house walkthrough, and I'm going to show you a quick speeded up version of the house walkthrough just so you can get an idea of what that's about. So we walk through every room in the house and we measure the geometry, the size of those rooms and record that on a laser measuring device. So that's what's happening. This happens to be a particularly large house. And so if you were interested in asking questions about the size, scope, surfaces of the natural environment, there's information available to you here that would be otherwise extremely difficult to acquire, right? And this is not data we are coding in any way, but I think there's a lot of information here that could be exploited. And you see things like the children's toys, right? Where do the children play? And I might have been talking over whether we were in their, oh no, here we're in their room. Yeah, so there's, okay. This is a pretty tidy house, but mom obviously still wanted to tidy further. That's also an interesting question. You might assume that everyone has tidied up. You'd be wrong. Or at least according, it doesn't look especially tidy to me. Maybe they did tidy up. Okay. So lots of really interesting questions about individual differences. Okay, that would be hard to capture otherwise. All right, so coding these videos, collecting sounds like it's an enormous amount of effort. What's the benefit, right? I mean, come on, what's the benefit? And in a parallel study that really provided a pilot data to some extent for play, my colleagues at NYU have shown that doing this actually lets us look at things that we wouldn't be able to see. Look at the dense time series, the multi-dimensional aspects of the behavior that are otherwise can be challenging to reveal. And it turns out that there are immense amounts of play, but they tend to occur in short bursts, and they're intervening with other kinds of behavior. So household activities, mixed activities, behavior doesn't have anything to do with objects at all, and maybe sometimes they're off camera for lots of different kinds of reasons. If you look at this and then combine these together, so we're able to then see, what about situations where parents are talking, but they're also interacting with their children in particular kinds of ways, and look at the covariant structures of them. And it turns out that there's immense quantities of multimodal interactions, again, occurring in short bursts. So the developmental context is rich, complex, and quite exciting to be able to explore and exploit using these tools. So for the survey data, we use an R package that interacts with the Databerry API that I wrote, partly as a way to learn about how to interact with APIs and so forth. And we use it extensively, or I use it extensively, let's say, the team does too. And so we're creating reproducible data cleaning, visualization, and analysis scripts from the get-go. And so I think that, so if you think of the data repository as the final home, not resting place, because that sounds too morbid, but a place where your data are going to end up, then you can write reproducible analysis scripts against that you can give to someone else as soon as the data are openly shared. Right? You don't have to go through changing all of your directory pathways from, you don't have to do any of that. You just download the data from where it actually is going to be, and then you do things with it. So for example, you log into the Databerry using something that looks, a command looks like that. You download the Databerry survey data. This is actually the script that I'm going to show you, and you can look at things. So these are the data we've collected thus far, the demographics of the play data. So we're about 20 to 24 babies in all three groups. Reasonable, not surprising given the sites that are collecting, but some racial and ethnic diversity. And I want to point out something that Mike said earlier about them, and Kylie too, been talking about the many babies demographics. So there are some virtues in standardizing these questions, and I would say special virtues in putting them in a repository. So Databerry has demographic data from almost 10,000 participant sessions. And we can look at reports to see what variables are there already. So race, ethnicity, gender, age will be there. Age is already stored within the system, but I'm having a little problem with my script giving you a report about what that distribution is. It's a minor programming issue. And so having these characteristics available provides the foundation in the future for searching and filtering by important participant characteristics. If we don't do this right, then in the future, we're going to wish we had done this. And so, I hope Mike and I have a to-do to talk more about your many babies demographics and make sure that we are coordinating with one another on that to give a future where it's possible for researchers like you to say, I want to look at 2-year-olds who are from Spanish-speaking families that are multiracial, and what do they look like in their whatever. So that's what we want to do. And I also want to mention, just as an aside, that the Databerry API already returns time segments of selected videos, meaning that it's possible then to, if you have a list of these are the different behaviors I'm interested in, and here's their time segment, to get back a set of those videos. And that provides a foundation for the selection of tagged video segments for any sort of AI or machine learning that you might want to do in the future. It's making that smooth and workable is still a work in progress, but it's built in, something we're committed to doing going forward. So we very much want Databerry to be not just a repository, but also a tool for exploration. All right, so does crawling, the age of onset, correlate with walking, age of walking onset? Well, we hope so, and it does, right? So in our data sample, there's not much difference in between boys and girls. What about windowless feeding? Solid food occur mostly 5 and 6 months, but there's some earlier onsets. Over the last 2 weeks, how often do mothers report being bothered by the following kinds of problems? Feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? Well, a reasonable proportion of the parents report that. How about feeling down, depressed, or hopeless? Some do too. And these are important things potentially for us to know and be able to understand in understanding the environmental context. What about media use, right? So are kids using TV or tablets? Well, there's a lot of TV watching, not surprisingly, perhaps at 12, 18, 24 months, and I guess increasing use of tablet type computers. All right, so that's just a sneak preview. Happy to show you more if you're interested in seeing what some of the videos actually look like later. So let's make a play in general. Let's make a science of natural behavior a part of what we do and work together to do so. So a big data developmental science of this is in fact possible, but I also think it's necessary. It's important to do, both scientifically, but also for the broader sets of questions that the SRCD policy contemplates. That we can study cognition and emotion in contexts where these behaviors and processes occur and influence many kinds of behaviors. That having ambitious scientific goals, like many babies, like play, really drives innovation in a number of different ways, and that's important, right? You know, if you don't shoot for the don't shoot for the stars, you won't even get to the moon, right? So being ambitious can help us get further. Having a future orientation, what will future researchers want to know, is challenging. It's slower, makes our progress slower, but it's also invigorating, and I think we hope will lead to better outcomes. And ultimately, as Mike pointed out, we want to become a cumulative science. By the way, Walter Mischel, in an editorial in 2009, talks about some of the barriers to psychology becoming a cumulative science, and I'll mention a bit about this in my afternoon talk. So come play with us, right? Collaborate with one of the launch group members of the data that are in process. Write grants to use the data. We're happy to help you. We'd love to have other people build upon what's coming. Help test, polish the Databerry API package and complete the Python package. We'd love some people with coding chops to make some commits. Help shape and test Databerry 2.0. That's something that's very much in process. We would like it to respond to researchers' needs. Collect and share videos of your participants' behavior on Databerry. There are some of the many babies sessions that are on Databerry. Very few of them are actually visible. I would have shown you some if I could have shown them in this context. But we'd like to find ways to make that more useful to those projects. And let's make developmental science a leader in big data research on children's behavior, thinking, and feeling. Thank you.